Hare Hare. Or Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. One together, please. Narayanam Naram Chaivanaro Devam Saraswati Vyasam Jayam Virayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God, unto Narayan, Supreme Being, unto Lord Saraswati, God's author. Nastotreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Aishvaki. By regular attendance classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of God, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Anyone know the difference between lunar and solar calendars? Know the difference? A good guess, right? Yes. So the lunar calendar is about a 28-day cycle, and the solar calendar is a 364-day cycle, roughly. So the Western calendars are based on the solar calendar, and the Indian calendar is based on the lunar calendar, at least the Vedic calendar, I should say. So today is a confluence of two auspicious days. One is calculated by the solar, one by the lunar, if I understand correctly. You know what these days are? So today, the solar day, this is the day that Srila Prabhupada came to Gainesville, 1971. I believe by the lunar calendar, this is the day that ISKCON was founded, 1966. Class is canceled today. I wanted to start, before class, just talk about these two events just briefly. So first, in the founding of ISKCON in 1966, there's a beautiful description in the Lilamrita. Who here has read the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita? Nitai, okay. Parts and parts. Gopal and Nitai. So, John to some extent. So, I really want to encourage you to put that, if you're like me, like you sleep next to a stack of books, hoping by osmosis that but you just like maybe put that one up towards the top, because that one really will, more than any other book I know, will build your knowledge and faith practicing bhakti. It's just an incredible story of Prabhupada's determination. Persisted for years with no success, virtually no success, just on the order. He was happy fulfilling the order of his guru. That's what I get. Even though nothing much was happening in his efforts, he kept going because that was his joy. So in the when he came to America in 1965, he had a very difficult year. And then after being through all kinds of challenges and poverty, poverty, he wound up with this little place in Lower East Side of New York City and started holding regular classes. Before that, he'd been going around giving lectures in various places. He saw that wasn't working. Another important lesson from the Lilamrita. It's okay. That Prabhupada would try things, they didn't work, he'd try something else. So he went around giving lectures, and that wasn't working. So then he realized you need to be in one steady place. So he got this place, and people started coming regularly. So at that point, he uh, got to a sense, okay, we can establish a nonprofit organization. One of the guests was a lawyer who volunteered to help. So this was the day in which Prabhupada did all the paperwork, got a couple of random hippies to sign, more or less, one or two serious people and others who just happened to be there to be trustees of the organization, and it was incorporated. So it's a beautiful story in that what has happened in those subsequent 58 years now, 58 years. It's just how it took off, how it has spread throughout the world, how it's proven what he taught and knew all those years in India. And Krishna consciousness is relevant for everybody. Everybody's eligible for practicing. So that was the founding of ISKCON. 5 years after that founding, again, Prabhupada was getting invitations to come and speak at universities from his various disciples. So he would do that for a while, and then he thought, this is a lot of energy, very questionable return. So he made a edict. Any university that wants me to speak, they will pay me an honorarium of $1,000. $1,000 was a lot of money back then. So there was a mad scramble among the different temples. Who can get a university to give an honorarium to Prabhupada first? So there was one. The Gainesville temple was fairly new. It had been started by two traveling sannyasis who were like 24 years old, had no money, just hitchhiking. Hitchhiked to Gainesville, went out and sat on the plaza and started chanting. And got a few interested people. And one of those people was a campus radical, was very anti-Vietnam War, which was the big issue at that time. He was known as a big radical. So he got interested. He took it up. His name was David Lieberman. He later was initiated as Amarendra. So Amarendra became he and his wife established the first temple in their rented apartment. It was like a 2-bedroom apartment. That was the first temple in Gainesville. And then he went to the student union as a radical. He said, you need to give $1,000 to bring the speaker. And they said, no. But then he was so insistent, finally I just relented. Said, all right. So Gainesville got the bid. And that was how Prabhupada. So there was no airport in Gainesville at that time. He flew to Jacksonville and then drove for 2 hours. And it was very rural at that time, even more than now, of course. So by the time he got here to Gainesville, he had a certain impression. In his welcome address, he said, here in this remote corner of the world, far removed from the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. So, and if you look on a globe, you'll see Mayapur, India, it's just about as far as you can get from Gainesville, Florida. So he spent 24 hours, that was it. And the temple was, I guess, slightly larger at that point, but he gave an address on campus. It was on the plaza. And as common in July, there was a little intermittent rain. You can hear the tape of the lecture. There's a dog barking, and apparently 300 or 400 students were gathered. And Vyasa-san on a raised dais. And so he spoke about the actual meaning of yoga. He spoke about the commonalities between dogs and humans, because there was a dog barking in the background. And then he spoke about the absence of spiritual education in conventional college, so, among other things. He also spoke about the 3 Vishnus, which we're going to talk about in class. So after the class, he came back, went on then back to the university for a very memorable radio interview. And he was asked, how could one tell a true follower, your true follower? Which is a really good question, good journalistic question. Prabhupada could have answered that so many ways. My true follower reads my books. My true follower chants Hare Krishna. My true follower wears robes and saris. What did he answer? My true follower is Perfect gentleman, yes. Lady or gentleman. So he was explaining that because those who are actually practicing bhakti follow regulative principles, they're gentlemen and ladies and do not cause suffering to other people or abuse their bodies. So in this way, he came back. It was like 10:30 or 11 at night, and several devotees had come to be initiated, and they were very anxious, hoping that the Prabhupada was leaving the next morning. His flight was 7 or something, so there wasn't time in the morning. So he said, just come up to my room. And so they came, and he gave them their beads and names. And then they didn't have neck beads. The temples were not so organized or planned, well planned out at that time. So that's part of the initiation. You're supposed to get 3 strands of neck. So then after he gave one devotee beads, he said, where are the neck beads? And I looked around, and the devotee just got his beads. It took him like he wasn't going to give them back. He was afraid he'd have to give them back. So this was Prabhupada's short visit. One last humorous event was when he was leaving from the airport in Jacksonville. So the devotees had built a really big, heavy vyasasana for him. And the temple president then was very zealous young man, Kalakantha Prabhu. He thought, we cannot possibly have him sit on a regular seat where the ordinary people sit. So they brought the vyasasana to the airport in Jacksonville. There was no TSA at that time. There was no screening. You could just walk in the airport, walk to the gate. Anybody could go and you could meet people at the gate. That's how it used to be. You just go and meet your friends at the gate. So Prabhupada was walking up the hallway, and then there's some commotion down the hall. I looked down, and there were 4 brahmacharis struggling to carry this heavy vyasasana with no shoes on, 1 or 2 with no shirts on. And then he went over and sat down in a regular seat, came huffing and puffing, put down the vyasasana. Prabhupada just looked the other way as if he had no idea what was going on. So the devotees were very enthusiastic. But this was, what an impact that one day made. Ever since then, Krishna lunch has been served, kirtan's been going on. This was his instruction. He said, do something wonderful in Gainesville. What is wonderful? Distribute prasadam and have kirtan. So that has been going on all these years. It's still going on. So 3 years ago at this time, the president of the University of Florida came out, and we had a 50th anniversary celebration on Plaza. And it was a very nice event. Who was there? Some of us were there. Yeah. So President Fox, who has now just been reinstated briefly as the interim president, and who stated at my daughter's graduation that before anyone who graduates, they have to learn how to pronounce my name properly. It's spelled F-U-C-H-S. So President Fox was there, and he was very appreciative of Krishna lunch, and he said, after his address, he said, and I hope that you'll go on another 50 years. And it was really nice because some people in the administration always have a little tension with Krishna lunch. But when their boss was saying that, it was like, all right. So this is the legacy of Prabhupada, both locally and worldwide. Auspicious day. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anything else anyone would like to add before we move on? Yes. Yeah, I thought that was Gainesville, the one with the Wood family and the ferns. I believe it is, although someone else said no, it's Toronto. Not sure.
He said, why are your followers, all of your followers, young people?
Yes. Yeah, so that was at the temple opening address. The reporter said, why are all of your followers young people? In other words, where are the adults here? And Prabhupada said, "Why are all the students at your university young people?" He said, "Youth is a time for education." Yes, that's true.
Did that letter he addressed about purchasing the fraternity house in Gainesville come in?
I don't know.
And then also the letter about Gainesville will be a success if you chant enthusiastic.
Yes, that was shortly. That was not too long ago. Right? Okay, so let's go on to our Bhagavatam study. This is chapter 32, the third canto out of 33. Finish up next week. You'll have gone over the third canto. How does that feel? So we're going to read 13 texts, and then we'll focus on one. So can we start? Pass around the mics, please. 30. Well, this is 32. 32:8.
Worshippers of the Hiranyagarbha expansion of the personality of Godhead remain within this material world till the end of the two Paradas, when Lord Brahma also dies.
Okay, so I want to give some context here real quick. So how many Vishnu expansions are there of Krishna? Unlimited, okay, but the primary ones. Smart guy. How many? 3, right. Okay. So in the spiritual world, everyone's having a party, and nobody wants to stop and sleep. So, but because sleep is also part of creation, one little corner of the spiritual world, Krishna lies down in this form of Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu, big Vishnu. So as he's lying down in slumber, when he exhales, countless universes emanate towards the body. When he inhales, he come back in. So then within each of these seed-like universes, there is yet another Vishnu expansion, who is known as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. The universes are little spheres that are half full of water like coconut. And that ocean is called the causal ocean. There, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is residing, he's resting. Garbha means womb. So the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, from his navel comes the lotus, and on top of the lotus is Lord Brahma. This is the Hindu myth of creation. And yet, it's the only one that squares up with science. I mean, that's the latest in physics. String theory that there's multiple universes. They all come from a small origin and they expand and then they come back into the small. So, anyway, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is the God of the universe. Okay? So Mahavishnu is the origin of all the material creation. Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is within each universe is the God. Like when we have the picture of Vishnu in the back, it's Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. This is like the awesome form of God. And then he expands one more time as Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, which is the super soul, right? He expands again in the heart of every living entity. All of the innumerable living entities of Vishnu sitting in the heart. So these are the 3 Vishnus. So this verse is saying the worshippers of Hiranyagarbha, which is Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, they get to live in this world for a very extensive time, as long as Lord Brahma. That's their benefit. What Kapila Dev is doing here is comparing the various results of various types of worship. Okay. Any questions on that? Bruce? Is Vishnu in every atom? Yes, he's in every atom and in between every atom. This is actually Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. It's described in the first canto that he pervades the universe like fire pervades wood. So this is the all-pervading presence of God in his Shirodakshai Vishnu everywhere. And in this universe, he has no separate spiritual planet. He just exists in this universe for the benefit of the conditioned souls. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Karnadaksha Vishnu. Yeah, I'm sorry. The causal ocean is Mahavishnu. Karnadaksha. No, Karnadaksha. Okay, so the Karna ocean is Mahavishnu. Right. Okay. That's his other name, Mahavishnu Karnadaksha. Okay. So next. Would you like to read? Carly, go ahead. Oh, Jack?
After experiencing the inhabitable time of the three modes of material nature, known as two aradas, Lord Brahma closes the material universe, which is covered by layers of earth, water, air, fire, ether, mind, ego, etc., and goes back to Godhead.
So there's two devastations when Brahma goes to sleep at the end of the day. There's a partial devastation, and when he dies, it's complete devastation. Yeah. Brandon?
The yogis who become detached from the material world by practice of breathing exercises and control of the mind reach the planet of Brahma, which is far, far away. After giving up their bodies, they enter into the body of Lord Brahma, and therefore when Brahma is liberated and goes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Supreme Brahman, such yogis can also enter the kingdom of God.
Therefore, my dear mother, by devotional service take direct shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart.
My dear mother, someone may worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a special self-interest, but even demigods such as Lord Brahma, great sages such as Sanat Kumara, and great munis such as Marichi have come back to the material world again at the time of creation. When the interaction of the three modes of material nature begins, Brahma, who is the creator of this cosmic manifestation and who is full of Vedic knowledge, and the great sages, who are the authors of the spiritual path and the yoga system, come back under the influence of the time factor. They are liberated by their non-fruitive activities and attain to the first incarnation of the Purusha. But at the time of creation, they come back in exactly the same forms and positions they previously had.
Persons who are too addicted to this material world execute their prescribed duties very nicely and with great faith. They daily perform all such prescribed duties with attachment to the fruitive result.
Such persons, impelled by the mode of passion, are full of anxieties and always aspire for sense gratification due to uncontrolled senses. They worship the forefathers and are busy day and night improving the economic condition of the family, social, or national life.
Such persons are called Chai because they are interested in the three elevating processes. They are averse to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can give relief to the conditioned soul. They are not interested in the Supreme Personality's pastimes, which are worth hearing because of his transcendental prowess.
Such persons are condemned by the Supreme Order.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Such persons are condemned by the Supreme Order of the Lord because they are averse to the nectar of the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are compared to stool-eating hawks. They give up hearing the transcendental activities of the Lord and indulge in hearing of the abominable activities of materialistic persons.
Such materialistic persons are allowed to go to the planet called Pritaloka by the southern course of the sun, but they again come back to this planet and take birth in their own families beginning again the same fruitive activities from birth to the end of life.
Finally, when the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they fall down by higher arrangement and again come back to this planet, just as any person raised to a high position sometimes all of a sudden falls. Okay, so we read verse 11. Yeah. Atatam sarva bhutanam Padmeshu Kritalayam Shrutanupabam Sharanam Rajapavena Bhamini Atatam Sarva Bhutanam Padmeshu Kritalayam Shrutanupabam Sharanam Rajapavena Bhamini. Let's chant.
Ahatam sarva bhutanam
Atatam
Padmeshu Kritalayam Sutam bhavam sarvadam Rajapavena bhavani
Atatam sarva bhutanam Padmeshu Kritalayam Tam Bhavam Saranam Raj Bhavina Bhavan
Synonyms together. Ata, therefore, Tam, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sarva Bhutana, of all living entities, Prit Padmeshu, in the lotus hearts, Kritalayam, residing, Shrutanupabam, whose glories you have heard, Charna, unto the shelter, Raja, go, Bhavena, by devotional service, Bhamini, my dear mother. Translation together. Therefore, my dear mother, by devotional service, take direct shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart. I'd like to read the Sean.
One can attain direct contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in full Krishna conscious and revive one's eternal relationship with Him as lover, as Supreme Soul, as Son, as friend, or as Master. One can reestablish the transcendental loving relationship with the Supreme Lord in so many ways, and that feeling is true oneness. The oneness of Mayavadi philosophers and the oneness of Vaishnava philosophers are different. The Mayavadi and the Vaishnava philosophers both want to merge into the Supreme, but the Vaishnavas do not lose their identities. They want to keep the identity of lover, parent, friend, or servant. In the transcendental world, the servant and master are one. That is the absolute platform. Although the relationship is servant and master, both the servant and the served stand on the same platform. That is oneness. Lord Kapila advised his mother that she did not need any direct process. She was already situated in that direct process because the Supreme Lord had taken birth as her son. Actually, she did not need any further instructions because she was already in the perfectional stage. Kapila Deva advised her to continue in the same way. He therefore addressed his mother as Brahmani to indicate that she was already thinking of the Lord as her son. Devahuti is advised by Lord Kapila to take directly to devotional service, Krishna consciousness, because without that consciousness, one cannot become liberated from the clutches of Maya.
Jaya. Therefore, my dear mother, by devotional service, take direct shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is seated in everyone's heart. This section of the Bhagavatam is full of destinations for various kinds of worshippers. In the Gita, Krishna explains those who worship the demigods go to the gods, those who worship ghosts and spirits take birth among such beings, those who worship me come to me. So the message of the Gita and the Bhagavatam, the same thing. That we all have the choice of our destination. This is such a difficult thing for people to understand about God, that he's neutral. He just reciprocates with us. He doesn't impose. He just gives us what we want. And he's benevolent in that respect. If it's kind of an imbalanced relationship, isn't it? After all, in his sleep incarnation, he's emanating countless universes. What is our position? You ever go to the beach, stand on the beach, and just look out there and think, my God, that is a big ocean. Right? It just goes on and on. You can see a few miles, and you know it goes hundreds of miles beyond that. It's so deep, and it makes you feel very small. And yet Krishna is floating hundreds of trillions of oceans like that, planets everywhere. And, what is our position? Which is so insignificant, and yet we're thinking. This is what gets us in trouble. Is this big ego that we carry around? That we are so very important. We are important if we're connected to Krishna. And we are important to Krishna whether we're connected to him or not. That's the beautiful thing. He is unshaken in his love for us. And whether we choose to treat him well or indifferently, his love is a constant for us. He is just waiting for us to reciprocate. But because of our big egos, we're thinking, okay, everything in my life is so important, and I'll fit in Krishna to the extent I can, or I won't even bother with God at all. So you see how ridiculous our position is. If we had just some realization about the greatness of God, we would be awestruck, humbled. And yet that realization is very hard for us to hold on to. To the extent that we realize our position, God's position, to that extent we actually enjoy life. The rest, otherwise we're pursuing something based on our own pride and our own false sense of self. And that just creates more problems for us, because that's God's arrangement. He lets us do that if we want, even though it's impossible. Can't enjoy separately from what you're made to be doing. Just like Prabhupada give the example of a screw, a little tiny screw in a machine. It's made to fit just right to that particular spot. Take the screw out, it has very little value. But if it's in its place, it's contributing to the whole, it has so much value. So similarly, if we're connected with our Creator, we have so much value. If we're disconnected, it's just one of so many insignificant screws. So this life of Krishna consciousness that Prabhupada gave us in New York, and he enhanced when he came to Gainesville, it's just a gift. It's just a gift. It is nothing but a chance to get out of our illusory egocentric consciousness and enjoy life on a much higher platform. When we read sections of the Bhagavatam like this, they're basically saying you can go anywhere you want, even very elevated places like higher planets, even the planet of Lord Brahma. You can live an extended life, you can gain powers. These are things that are like far beyond our ordinary perspective. But if somebody like Taylor Swift becomes a billionaire, she's like, oh, a goddess. Everybody knows about her. Everybody's following her every move, and it's a big thing. And we think, wow, if I could just be like that, I would really be enjoying it. But really, what is the difference? It's just the same Janma, Mrityu, Jaravyadi going on, whether you're rich and famous or whether you're obscure and poor. It's the same thing. It's just going on. The examples given of a first-class prison cell and a regular prison cell. Foolish regular prisoner just aspires to be in the first-class cell. So these descriptions of various higher planets and various yogic perfections and so forth are all just like first-class cells within the material universe. They're very highly placed cells, but they still all have to come back. We're just reading this verse after verse. They still have to come back to the same position. For most of us, all this is not very relevant. We didn't grow up worshiping demigods. We didn't even have an idea of what they are. But the overall thing is quite relevant. That whatever we may pursue in life, however ambitious, however big in its scope, it's just relation to God is so insignificant. There was a story of a man who made a living pulling barges along a canal. So that's a very laborious task. You're familiar with the canal? Anyone ever been to the Potomac Temple? Used to. Maybe we'll get to go there again some summer, but this temple is quite close to a place called Great Falls. And it's the Potomac River running over some rocks. Very beautiful place, trails you can go around. But along the edge of it is a canal that was built way back in the 1800s, or even 1700s. It was a big deal because pull heavy loads of cargo very efficiently. The river was too rapid to use at that point, so they had to build a canal around, and that made it possible to get goods in and out of Washington. Big deal. So the canal would pull these heavy barges along the edge. And a friend asked him, if you were rich, what would you do? He said, oh, if I were rich, I would put pillows along every step of the canal. So my feet wouldn't hurt so much. So this is our position in the material world. We're just thinking, if I could just make things comfortable in this world, comfortable in so many ways, like make them comfortable in terms of my health, in terms of my wealth, in terms of my relationships, in terms of my prestige and my acquisitions. If I could just get all, then I would have a very nice life in this world. And thus, we very nicely miss the whole purpose of life that was never taught to us in school. So Srimad Bhagavatam is giving this information, even things far beyond our scope, aspirations far beyond our scope. So struggling with this ego is what keeps us from appreciating and understanding, connecting with God. The ego is one of the coverings we read, remember? When Brahma wraps up the universe, earth, water, air, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. So our ego is our pride, and our pride is so strong that if you offend me, then I will push you out of my life forever. I want nothing to do with it because you did not respect me properly. Isn't it? This is so disproportionate to reality. We're thinking that we're in a very big position, that we're very important. The more we get freed of that, the more we are happy. The more we are unoffendable. we read about the danger of offending devotees, and this is catastrophic to our spiritual lives, simply because all of the living entities are dear to Krishna. So particularly if somebody is trying to serve Krishna and then we allow our false ego to get in the way, then we will be we'll be displeasing Krishna. Right? So when we are in relationships with others, well, first of all, let's just look at in these purports and verses we're reading about how there is no connection with God unless there's a relationship. There's no connection with anyone unless there's a relationship. There's no understanding ourselves unless there's a relationship. We only exist in relationship with other people. Anyone ever heard of Simon and Garfunkel? Oh, you poor souls. 75% of your life. They were very popular singers back when music was good in the 60s. And they had one song called I Am a Rock, I Am an Island. And it's a song all about this person who's just withdrawing from the world because he doesn't want any relationships, doesn't want any friendships. I have my books, I have my poetry, and no one can find me here, no one can touch me here. This is a very powerful song. And he includes a rock feels no pain and an island never. In other words, saying it's just a false position. You can't really maintain. Can't really be happy without relationships. So when the false ego gets in the way of our relationships, we suffer. Right? When we get angry, say for example, that's angry. Anger is a symptom of false ego. When we're acting on the platform of false ego, then we get angry with other people. Why? Because we feel we haven't been respected properly, right? Haven't been given the proper deference, or somebody accidentally stepped on our toe. Well, road rage, fights, people go to prison because of acting on anger in some uncontrolled way, isn't it? It's amazing. And commit murders and just do all kinds of stupid things that implicate them for years and years because of anger. My friend Chaitanya Charan writes that the pain of anger, the pain of what's causing us anger, rarely compares to the pain of the consequences of anger. Isn't that nice? Pain of the cause of anger rarely compares to the pain of the consequences of it. In other words, if we indulge in anger, natural result is bad. Anger is the younger brother of what? Lust. Because we want something and we don't get it, then we get angry. And then when we're angry, we don't want relationships or with a particular person. The only person we hurt is ourselves. When we allow anger to get the better of us. So how do we deal with it? We have to just learn to let things go. Srila Prabhupada said that one should forgive the small offenses of others. The Bible says it should be very slow to anger. When we feel angry, we should understand the problem is not with the cause of our anger. The problem is with how we're processing that cause. The problem is that we're overreacting to it. We are giving it too much importance. We are losing perspective of our tiny position and God's great position. Making ourselves, again, the center of everything. So being able to tolerate anger and lust, the urges of the mind and the tongue, the urge to speak. These things are the characteristics, Rupa Goswami writes, of one who can be a spiritual master and liberate the entire world. Just to be able to tolerate. So toleration doesn't mean that the feelings go away. It just means we have the intelligence not to act on it, especially in the moment. Especially in the moment. Just let it, okay, somebody just bruised my false ego. Let me just sit here and process that for a minute before I respond to it. In any way. If somebody has offended us some mild way and we just take it so heavily, we're only hurting ourselves. It's like saying, I'm mad at you, I'm going to drink poison. Then you'll be sorry. We're only hurting ourselves. And by indulging feelings of anger and lust, we're only hurting ourselves. It's difficult to tolerate them. And yet it's not so difficult if we understand don't need to indulge them to get better, to make them better. And indulging them only makes things worse. So these are the connections of the cosmic situation with our little lives. How we allow little things to become magnified due to our false sense of importance. And how liberating it is. Give up that false sense of importance and just deal with all the stuff that comes with our way in life without reacting. Just observing. At the end of the Gita, chapter 2, there's a beautiful verse about the river. It's always this ever flowing into the ocean that is always taking it in, but is remaining still nonetheless. So the river of experiences in life are like that. Yogi's mind is like the ocean. So the river is always pouring in, and the mind of the yogi is always the same. All right, any questions or comments? Nate and then Bruce.
On the topic of anger, we often think that expressing it will satiate it.
Yeah.
And that's because there's like an element of stress with anger. And when we have a physical release, we feel less stressed. So we think that's actually satisfying us, but it's an illusion, like a rage room. Like, I feel so much better. But it's like, no, you feel better because you just like exerted yourself and your body's less tense, and that's why you feel better, not because expressing anger gets rid of it.
Yes, yes. You can't express anger to Krishna. Kirtan. That's all right. That's right. See, feelings don't go away if they're repressed either. They need to be expressed, but how do we express them? Well, Krishna is in our heart and he knows what we're going through. In fact, he is pushing the buttons for our benefit. So it's fine to express those feelings in kirtan, in japa. The only way it doesn't work is to express them to the object of our anger, unless under certain circumstances, but very rarely. That's very good. My friend Tamal Krishna Maharaj used to say that he spent many years in China and India as well. He's American by birth, so he taught Krishna consciousness in all these places. He said the difference between you know what the difference between the East and West is? He said in the East, people were very reluctant to express their feelings because they want to save face. They don't want you to know how they feel because they don't want to be disrespectful. Behind their back, they're reaching in your wallet, but on the surface, they're very respectful. Whereas in the West, we're thinking, just like you said, Nathan, we just express our feelings, we'll feel better. So we wear our feelings on the sleeve. We have no hesitation about expressing them, and regardless of what people think. So this is the difference. Bruce, what did you think?
Question about the first paragraph in the purport. It says, sorry, Krishna consciousness and revive one's eternal relationship with him as lover, as supreme soul, as son, as friend, or as master. My question is, how does one relate to Krishna as supreme soul? I was just confused on that sentence.
Yeah, that's referring to the Shanta Rasa, or the neutral, awesome relationship, or the relationship with God in awe and reverence. He's the supreme, I'm tiny. That's our first stage of God consciousness. Yeah, just realizing that God's great and I am significant for him. And that's the common thread through all religions. And that is appreciable. But what is often lost is the subsequent steps. So after appreciating God's greatness and our insignificance, then naturally there should be what? Yeah, through what? Yeah, through service. Yeah, service is the next natural step. Okay, if you're so much greater than I, then let me serve you. Okay? And then as the intimacy of service grows, then we become friends. And then as the intimacy of friendship grows, we can, I could even take a superior position to you because you trust me that much. See, Krishna has his parents. He's not an orphan. He is an obedient son of Yashoda and Nanda sometimes. And because he loves that relationship too. He loves when Mother Yashoda says, bring your father's slippers. He loves when Mother Yashoda says, Krishna, time for dinner. He loves when Mother Yashoda says, Krishna, are you stealing butter again? So, all right. That's good. Anything else? Adisham Prabhu always has such a insightful comment.
Maharaj, I have a couple of questions about this topic. When you said it's a first class and second class prison, he once was on a flight from London to Mumbai, and the plane, the whole computer system failed. They had to do an emergency landing. And he said the things were flying, people were screaming, and he said, no person in the first class thought, at least I'm going to die in the first class. So it doesn't matter what situation we're in, all this crashing plane. And then about ego, he said, the greatness of the person must be estimated by how he or she tolerates provoking situations. I think it's quite deep.
The greatness of a person is how he or she tolerates provocative situations of all types. Yes? Okay. Carly.
So in this chapter, isn't Kapiladeva's mother asking about fruitive activities and like how to avoid them or something like that, right? So now connecting, I like in the bottom half of the purport, there was Prabhupada describing that Kapiladeva addressed his mother as a brahmacharini. And, right? Is that?
Not right. Brahmani.
Brahmani. And what does Brahmani mean?
Brahmani. It's another word for mother.
Okay.
So it's like an endearing term for.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. Yes. She was mother of this incarnation, and then by her husband Kardama had already renounced, left her in the care of Kapila. So anyway, it's beautiful exchange. It just shows that there's no shortage of varieties in the relationship with God. All right, so we'll stop there. Anything else? Glories to Prabhu. Mahaprasad ki jai. Sharira Adijajal Jatindriya Tanikra Jive Pile Isaya Sagare Karmija Jivayanti Lokamotsiturmati Taki Jeta Katina Samsare Krishna Bala Doya Moy Korivaya Jiva Joy Swa Prasada Ilo Bhai Sayana Mitapal Radha Krishna Preme Dako Chaitanya Mita Janima Janita Shiva Prabhupada Jai or Premanandi Hari Hari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Bhagavan Sankirtan